Hello everyone. Today we'll have a new lesson about programming languages that start with letter F. F. F is a modular compiled numeric programming language designed for scientific programming and scientific computation. F was developed as a modern FORTRAN, thus making it a subset of FORTRAN 95. It combines both numerical and data abstraction because features from these languages. F is also backwards compatible with FORTRAN 77, allowing calls to FORTRAN 77 programs. F was first included in the G95 compiler. Fsharp. Fsharp is a functional first general-purpose strongly typed multi-paradigm programming language that encompasses functional, imperative, and object-oriented programming methods. Fsharp is most often used as a cross-platform common language infrastructure or CLI language on .NET Core, but it can also generate JavaScript and graphics processing unit or GPU code. Fsharp is developed by the Fsharp Software Foundation, Microsoft, and open contributors. An open-source, cross-platform compiler for Fsharp is available from the Fsharp Software Foundation. Fsharp is a fully supported language in Visual Studio and JetBrains Rider. Fsharp is a member of the ML language family and originated as a .NET framework implementation of a core of the programming language OCaml. It has also been influenced by C#, Python, Haskell, Scala, and Erlang. Fstar. Fstar is a functional programming language inspired by ML and aimed at program verification. Its type system includes dependent types, monadic effects, and refinement types. This allows expressing precise specifications for programs, including functional correctness and security properties. The Fstar type checker aims to prove that programs meet their specifications using a combination of SMT, solving, and manual proofs. Programs written in Fstar can be translated to OCaml, Fsharp, and C for execution. Previous versions of Fstar could also be translated to JavaScript. The latest version of Fstar is written entirely in a common subset of Fstar and Fsharp, and bootstraps in both OCaml and Fsharp. It is open source under the Apache License 2.0 and is under active development on GitHub. FACTOR. FACTOR is a stack-oriented programming language created by Slava Pestov. FACTOR is dynamically typed and has automatic memory management, as well as powerful metaprogramming features. The language has a single implementation featuring a self-hosted optimizing compiler and an interactive development environment. The factor distribution includes a large standard library. Phantom. Phantom is a general-purpose object-oriented programming language created by Brian and Andy Frank that runs on the Java Runtime Environment or JRE, JavaScript, and the .NET Common Language Runtime or CLR. .NET support is considered prototype status. Its primary design goal is to provide a standard library API that abstracts away the question of whether the code will ultimately run on the JRE or CLR. Like C# and Java, Phantom uses a curly brace syntax. The language supports functional programming through closures and concurrency through the actor model. Phantom takes a middle-of-the-road approach to its type system, blending together aspects of both static and dynamic typing. Faust. Faust or Functional AudioStream is a domain-specific purely functional programming language for implementing signal processing algorithms in the form of libraries, audio plugins, or standalone applications. A Faust program denotes a signal processor, a mathematical function that is applied to some input signal and then fed out. FFP. FP, short for Functional Programming, is a programming language created by John Backus to support the function-level programming paradigm. This allows eliminating name variables. The language was introduced in Backus' 1977 Turing Award paper, Can Programming Be Liberated from the von Neumann Style? Subtitled A Functional Style and Its Algebra of Programs. Fish. Fish is a Unix shell that attempts to be more interactive and user-friendly than those with a longer history, such as most other Unix shells, or those formulated as function-compatible replacement for the aforementioned, like ZSH or the Felsted shell. The design goal of Fish is to give the user a rich set of powerful features in a way that is easy to discover, remember, and use. Fish is considered an exotic shell, in that its syntax derives from neither the Brownshell, KSH, Bash, or ZSH, nor the C shell. Fjolnir. Fjolnir or Fjolnir is a programming language developed by Professor Snorri Agnarsson of Computer Science at Haskell Islands, University of Iceland that was mostly used in the 1980s. The source files usually have the extension Fsho or ESMA. Fjolnir is based on the concept of representing programs as trees and packages by substitutions on trees using algebraic expressions or operators. FL. FL, short for function level, is a programming language created at the IBM Almaden Research Center by John Backus, John Williams, and Edward Reimers in the 1980s and documented in a report from 1989. FL was designed as a successor of Backus' earlier FB language, providing specific support for what Backus termed functional level programming. FL is a dynamically typed strict functional programming language with throw and catch exception semantics much like in ML. Flavors. Flavors, an early object-oriented extension to Lisp developed by Howard Cannon at the MIT Artificial Intelligence Laboratory for the Lisp machine, and its programming language Lisp Machine, Lisp, was the first programming language to include mixins. Symbolics used it for its Lisp machines, and eventually developed it into new flavors. Both the original and new flavors were message passing OO models. It was hugely influential in the development of the Common Lisp Object System or CLOS. Flex. In computing, the Flex language was developed by Alan Kay in the late 1960s while exploring ideas that would later evolve into the Smalltalk programming language. Bluff. Bluff and Pluff are simple programming languages designed by Douglas Hofstad III to illustrate a point in his book Gödel, Escher, Bash. Bluff is identical to Bluff except that it supports unbounded loops. It is a Turing-complete language and can express all computable functions. Borrowing from standard terminology in mathematical logic, Hofstadter calls loops unbounded loops MU loops. Like all Turing-complete programming languages, proof suffers from the halting problem. Programs might not terminate, and it is not possible in general to decide which programs do. Proof and proof can be regarded as models of computation and have sometimes been used in teaching computability. Flomatic. Flomatic, originally known as B0 or Business Language Version 0, was the first English-like data processing language. It was developed for the Univac 1 at Remington Rand under Grace Hopper from 1955 to 1959 and helped shape the development of COBOL. Focal. Focal is an interactive interpreted programming language based on JAWS and primarily used are Digital Equipment Corporation or DEC PDP series machines. The name is an acronym alternately for Formulating Online Calculations in Algebraic Language or Formula Calculator. Focus. Focus is a fourth-generation programming language or 4GL computer programming language and development environment that is used to build database queries. Produced by Information Builders Incorporation, it was originally developed for data handling and analysis on the IBM mainframe. Subsequently, versions for mini-computers and such as the VAX and other platforms were implemented. Focus was later extended to personal computers and, in 1997, to the World Wide Web, the Web Focus product. FOIL. FOIL was the name for two different programming languages. The first FOIL was a CAI language developed at the University of Michigan in 1967. The acronym stood for File-Oriented Interpretive Language, and it was very similar to other CAI languages like Cursewriter and Pilot. However, it tried to make the language somewhat block-structured using white space, which ended up making the language vaguely similar to BASIC or ABC. The second file was a music generation language for the touch computer instrument in 1979. The touch was a keyboard that had digital tone generation and allowed you to program software for performances. The acronym stood for Far Out Instrument Language and was succeeded by Metafoil and Foil 83. The language was developed by David Rosenboom and was based on Fork. Formac. Formac, the formula manipulation compiler, was the first computer algebra system to have significant use. It was developed by Jean E. Sammet and her team as an extension of FORTRAN 4. The compiler was implemented as a preprocessor, taking the Formac program and converting it to a FORTRAN 4 program, which was in turn compiled without further user intervention. Initial development started in 1962 and was complete by April 1964. In November, it was released to IBM customers. Formac supported computation, manipulation, and use of symbolic expressions. In addition, it supported rational arithmetic. At Formula. The Formula language is a scripting language used by Lotus Notes. It is often referred to as at Formula language because many language elements start with the at character. It was created by Ray Ozzie during the early development of Lotus Notes. He borrowed the compiler and decompiler from the Lotus 1-2-3 spreadsheet, but unlike the spreadsheet language, formula language was designed primarily for string and list processing, not numerical processing. It was originally a functional programming language with unique text list handling features inspired by Ray Alsey's prior use of icon and Lisp. The formula language engine was rewritten by Damian Katz for Notes and Domino 6. New features were added to the language such as looping and dynamic execution, and performance was improved. Fourth, Fort is an imperative stack-based computer programming language and environment originally designed by Chuck Moore. Language features include structured programming, reflection or the ability to examine and modify program structure during execution. Concatenative programming or functions are composed with juxtaposition, and extensibility or the programmer can create new commands. FORTRAN under ISO or IEC 1539. FORTRAN, formerly FORTRAN, derived from formula translation, is a general-purpose compiled imperative programming language that is especially suited to numeric computation and scientific computing. Originally developed by IBM in the 1950s for scientific and engineering applications, FORTRAN came to subsequently dominate scientific computing. It has been in use for over 6 decades in computational-intensive areas such as numerical weather prediction, finite element analysis, computational fluid dynamics, geophysics, computational physics, crystallography, and computational chemistry. It is a popular language for high-performance computing and is used for programs that benchmark and rank the world's fastest computers. Fortress. Fortress is a discontinued experimental programming language for high-performance computing created by Sun Microsystems with funding from DARPA's High Productivity Computing Systems project. One of the language designers was Guy L. Steele, Jr., whose previous work includes Scheme, Common Lisp, and Java. FP. FP, short for Functional Programming, is a programming language created by John Backus to support the function level programming paradigm. This allows eliminating name variables. The language was introduced in Backus' 1977 Turing Award paper, Can Programming Be Liberated from the von Neumann Style? Subtitled A Functional Style and Its Algebra of Programs. Franz Lisp. In computer programming, Franz Lisp is a discontinued Lisp programming language system written at the University of California, Berkeley, or UC Berkeley, UCB, by Professor Richard Heitman and several students, based largely on MacLisp and distributed with the Berkeley Software Distribution, or BSD, for the Digital Equipment Corporation, or DEC, VAX mini computer. Piggybacking on the popularity of the BSD package, Franz Lisp was probably the most widely distributed and used Lisp system of the 1970s and 1980s. The name is a pun on the composer and pianist Franz Liszt. FreeBasic. FreeBasic is a multi-platform, free or open source GPL, basic programming language, and compiler for Microsoft Windows, Protected Mode MS-DOS or DOS Extender, Linux, FreeBSD, and Xbox. The Xbox version is no longer maintained. According to its official website, FreeBasic provides syntax compatibility with programs originally written in Microsoft QuickBasic or QB. Unlike QuickBasic, however, FreeBasic is a command-line-only compiler unless users manually install an external integrated development environment or IDE of their choice. IDEs specifically made for FreeBasic include FByte and FBedit. FORTRAN. FORTRAN is a functional data parallel array programming language originally developed at DICO as part of the Hyperpit project. It focuses on enabling data parallel programs written in a functional style to be executed with high performance on massively parallel hardware, in particular on GPUs. FORTRAN is strongly inspired by NESL, but imposes constraints on how parallelism can be expressed in order to enable more aggressive compiler optimizations. ABScript. ABScript is an object-oriented scripting programming language for Apple's macOS operating system developed by Philippe Morgan. ABScript is an interactive language based on Smalltalk using macOS native Cocoa API. ABScript is based on a pure object paradigm. Every entity manipulated within the language is an object. Its base syntax and concepts are identical to those of the language Smalltalk, the canonical example of an object-oriented language, with specific extensions to support array programming as in the language APL. ABScript provides an interpreted, interactive environment with support for workspaces, which provide a rich set of functions including object persistence, distributed objects, graphical user interface or GUI framework, database access, among other things. That's all for the discussion about the programming languages that start with letter F. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.